Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG. And today I'm actually going to be doing a Patreon request. This is one of my higher tier Patreon members who wanted me to pretty much take a crack at this mixture of archetypes. It's pretty much the Red Dragon Resonator deck. I mean, these two are just so synergistic, and it's like they were designed to be together. It's pretty much just one deck. There's quite a few tech cards that you're going to have to incorporate in this deck to make it work. And then on top of that, to get the functionality going, you still have to have a certain amount of defensive cards. Otherwise, like, you could draw the perfect hand in this deck and still just be blown out by a Dragon Link board, a Prank Kid player's board, a, should all players board. Sometimes just even one Invoked Macabre can really put in a lot of work against this deck. So you guys are going to see, obviously, I'm main decking quite a few meta hate cards, just so that I can make sure that this deck can be able to push through 1 to 2 interruptions going second, or even just completely established boards. It's going to be really hard to do it without. That's why, as you guys can already see in my list, I don't play any hand traps, even though normally you would like to play hand traps in a deck like this, because you can actually search them in the middle of your combos, especially the light and dark ones. But they get in the way in the sense that, like, they're already going to be 1-for-1 trade-offs that normally most decks can play through. And then you're still going to be looking at the same board that you couldn't push past in the first place. So that's why when we get deeper in the profile, you'll see like the bottom 10 cards in the 4th row are super duper important for a deck like this to function. So that's a coffee machine. A little bit about this archetype and what it's able to do. It's essentially Red Dragon ARCHFIEND's crib. Like, this is actually like his mansion. And this guy has, like, I don't know how many forms. Like, Scarlight's one of his forms. He also has, like, these are all pretty much, like, extensions of him, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, I think that's why Konami also did what they did for Stardust. Because, like, Red Dragon really does have his own deck, and he has some pretty nutty cards. Like, this deck can do anything between setting up just literal Omni Negates, boss monsters that really just can't be touched, tons of pressure, absolutely disgusting board wipes that can banish all your cards, banish all your monsters. Pretty nasty recovery too, coming from exclusively Wild King and also Red Rising Dragon's graveyard effects. The fact that you can get so much usage out of those cards, and then the follow-ups that they have, just making them starters and extenders and follow-up plays, they have a lot of utility. And then on top of that, like, there's an actual literal turn skip that you can do with this deck. So, like, can it play through every hand trap under the sun? No, no deck can. So, honestly. But this deck is not as good as other decks that playing through him. That's why you'll see, like, I am main decking Triple Tactics Talents. I am main decking cards like Pankertops to help to play into a gamma with a bit more, like, a sense of security. And then you'll also see, obviously, some more defensive techs. So, like, the inboards with this deck can be anywhere between having Abyss with Bane, because you kind of, like, it's like you're never gonna not in with both of these, because you literally are synchro climbing from Abyss into Bane, and when you're doing that, you're normally looping using Synchron Resonator to loop Creation, because he's not once per turn, and you're literally summoning Creation again so that you can use Bane, attribute it, and bring back your Abyss. So that's like a pretty standard combo. You're normally, even on your average hand, you're normally gonna end on these guys. And then you can sometimes in the middle of your combos, you can make Chaos Ruler, net a bit of advantage. Card's really nice in this deck. Depending on if you're going to dump your hand out, you can also end on Void Ogre just for more disruptions. Some decks just can't beat BLs. Just honestly, some decks really just cannot out this card. He's just a really crazy powerhouse. This card came out recently in the newer support from Ghosts from the Past. I wouldn't say that this card is game-breaking or anything like that. He's cool, but because of the stipulations on how you can activate his effect, I think, personally, if you ask me from a competitive standpoint, I don't think this card's that great, because I think it's a lot easier to play around than people think, especially with how you have to trigger it. So normally when you make this guy, you want to have him in extra monster zone just so that your opponent can't force him out with, like, a Cerberus, for example. And then, again, this guy is going to be part of, like, the turn skip that you're going to do with this deck. And that's why when you see deeper in the profile, I am playing Synchron Call, because it's really broken. Like, it's going to help you to play through hand traps and things of that sort, but it's also really broken because, like, when you make this guy, like, your opponent can't really stop that unless, like, I guess they ghost belt this or, like, you know, DD Crow the target. Like, if you full comboed and you had Synchron Call, you're going to have an Omni Negate to protect it on top of that. So it's like really hard for your opponent to telegraph what plays you're making in the first place, because this deck is not only not meta, but it's not even considered to be a tier 3 deck. So a lot of people just don't know what these cards do. They don't know when to hand trap you. So you will sometimes play through hand traps better because they're not using them correctly. And then on top of that, they really don't know what your inboard's supposed to be. And then you're just going to skip their turn with King Calamity. And it's just insane. Like you guys, like if this deck could play through hand traps better, if this deck could just absolutely stomp boards going second, this would be one of those decks where you just feel like it's just way too degenerate. It's like everything this deck does is really not supposed to be fair. And I really wouldn't consider it fair, even in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! 2021, like with what people are doing with these decks these days. This deck is still not fair. It's just that the way it has to get to the unfair part of the deck is super duper fragile sometimes. So with all that said, let's get into the profile. So for starters, I have the deck pretty organized. We have 3 Resonator Call. This is the pretty much the rota for Resonators that is not once per turn. It's pretty broken because a lot of the times when you draw this, you will have full combo. Like in this deck, it's pretty easy to set up a really nutty board with just 2 cards. Ideally, if you open Resonator Call and you didn't already have access to Crimson, Crimson is the stones, by the way. You'll want to draw like Witch of the Black Forest, Wandering King Wildwind, or Reborn Tengu paired with Resonator Call, because that's a really nutty combo. And your board is going to be just absolutely atrocious. And what's really cool too with the board that you make normally when you get those cards is like your opponent can break that board and it's okay. Like you're not going to lose on the next turn unless they OTK'd you, because your follow-ups are pretty, like I said, they're pretty nice in this deck. I love it when you can play a combo deck and make a balls to the walls board and you can still have follow-ups even if you have no cards in your hand. I like it a lot. So like Resonator Call is one of the best cards to draw. And then Resonator Command. So this card is actually crazy. I have another idea with this that like I might as well share with you guys while I'm talking about this. I wanted to make Resonators with Magical Musketeers because like for one, I think it's just a cool concept. Like Magical Musketeers don't really need their extra deck a lot of the time. So like the restriction of like, you know, being locked out into the synchros and stuff is not really going to hurt. And then the other synergistic property with this in the Magical Musketeer deck is like you could search your muskets and trigger them with this card. I just thought this was like super cool how generically applicable this was. But it's not going to be abused a lot because you have to play quite a few Resonators to make this card live in your opening hands more often than not. So it's really coming down to that you can splash Resonators in other Fiend decks. If they benefit you, then you'll get a double purpose like kind of cards where like the Resonators will benefit your deck and you can search your Fiends with this card. It's pretty nice. This is another starter. So ideally, if you already had access to Crimson, because this card is absolutely like disgusting. This card is so good. It's way too powerful. Like you just don't want to play this deck without this card. Like you really don't. Like it's so hard to play this deck without this card, like as far as 2-card combos go, that like it's too good. Like you have to have this. So like with Resonator Command, you're gonna normally get rid of your other Resonators to get access to Crimson. And there are some that you don't mind having them engraved. So like Resonator Command is just amazing. It honestly is. And for our next starter, we have Crimson Resonator. So this card is like, how do I explain this? This card is an extender, a starter, and a follow-up all in one. It's an extender because it can just summon itself from your hand. Well, I wouldn't consider it an extender in its first effect because like controlling no monsters and summoning this doesn't really make it an extender. That's more of a starter play. But it's an extender in the sense that it can summon 2 Resonators from your deck when you control exactly 1 Dark Dragon Synchro. And normally what you're going to be doing anyways is you're going to be making Red Rising Dragon and using that to bring this guy back and then use him to summon 2 more Resonators from your deck. Now, where do the follow-ups come from? Normally, the Resonators you're summoning off this guy are typically going to be Creation and also Synchron, because these cards are actually pretty integral for your combo, and you're actually going to be using Synchron to actually loop your Creation to summon Creation back again. So your follow-ups from there are going to come from the Synchron, because like if you didn't already need to loop Synchron, you'll have Synchron to use it for your next turn to add a Resonator again. for example, you can get your Crimson back. So this card has so much utility in the sense that it fills multiple niches and roles in one card. It just makes Resonator Call and Command that much more powerful because they can do more than just what they say on pen and paper. And then we have Red Resonator. If Infinite Impermanence and Effect Veiler were more popular, this card would be kind of scary to commit. Even now, like in Modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, because Gamma is still being played, I'm sometimes very scared to even normal summon this guy. Like, the reason why Crimson is safer, because you can get Crimson out in a sense that, like, you're already making plays before you get to resolve Crimson. So when your opponent stops Crimson, it's not like your turn's being ended. You can keep playing. But Red Resonator is like a choke point in this deck. That's why I'm sometimes scared to commit to him. But like when you have Red and you're summoning out, for example, which would be better than Wild King because you could just special him through his own, you know, condition. You would want to be summoning either Witch of the Black Forest or Reborn Tengu. And I'll get deeper into that why I play both, because some people might say, oh, you don't want to play too many of those cards, but like I strongly disagree. But anyways, yeah, Red Resonator is still nutty. Like the card, you can full combo pretty much like with Red. And it's really helpful because like you're actually going to be getting out, for example, Reborn Tengu and Witch, and you're going to be chain blocking with those in Red Rising. So like this versus Gamma really hurts, but this versus like Ash and Skullmeister and other hand traps that are just not Gamma, and for example like Impermanent Veiler, it can help you to play through those because you will be chain blocking. And normally you're going to prioritize, obviously, your most important effect that's Chain Link 1 anyways. Getting past that, and like this card's pretty cool in time as well, so that's nice to know. Getting past that, we have Wandering King Wildwind. This card is so similar to Crimson in the sense that he fills multiple roles. He's an extender and a starter and a follow-up all in one card. He's literally going to search you for another res next turn. On top of that, his summoning condition is a condition and not an effect. So this card can be searched out through Witch of the Black Forest, which what makes her so good in this deck because like I'm not playing hand traps, right? So it's not like you're going to be searching hand traps off her, or normally that would be a good thing to do. So it actually works because his effect to summon itself is not actually an effect. It's a condition. You just control a Fiend type tuner with 1500 or less attack, and you can summon this guy. This card is actually really nutty in this deck, and his follow-up makes him like literally just like another Resonator Call. This card is insane, but it's pretty generic because like let me go down to his search effect. It doesn't search Resonators, it actually just searches Fiend type tuners with 1500 or less attack. It's just convenient that all the Resonators are in that category. So yes, this is a card you want to open up with, and you also have Resonator Command to search him, and you also have Witch of the Black Forest to search him. So more often than not, you just don't brick with this deck because it's very consistent. You have legitimately 9 ways to access Crimson, 9 ways to access Wildwind. So it's pretty often you're going to open those two cards, and that's going to help you out a lot because that's a big portion of your combo anyways. But you normally would prefer to open Crimson and Witch because that's one of the easier 2-card combos to pull off. That way you have pretty much an extra body that's going to help you climb and get into your Wildwind versus just hard drawing him. So when it comes to opening with Crimson and a level 4, it's better to open with Crimson and Witch than it is to open with Crimson and Wildwind because the Witch is going to search him out anyways, which is going to be better for you. And then obviously Witch of the Black Forest. I pretty much covered the grounds that she's going to be fulfilling in this deck. The other thing that's important about her is she is level 4. And believe it or not, a big portion of your combos are going to start off with this card, which is pretty broken because this is not a once per turn. And its follow-up is insane. Like, when we get into the extra deck, Red Rising Dragon is, like, the only 3 of that you want to play in the extra deck. The card is just way too powerful. That card is the stones. You want level 4s and level 2 tuners because that's going to start your combos off. So, this being a level 4 makes it even better. Like, it's so good. Like, I wanted to play Damage Juggler and Hat Tricker, right? But, honestly, Witch of the Black Forest is like a Damage Juggler that gets you into this, which is like a Hat Tricker. The only better benefit that like those cards would give you, because like honestly with the amount of normal summons I'm playing, Damage Juggler is just not an exception right now. Hat Tricker would be cool to have another level 4 extender. So that's the only kind of like give and take that would be involved with those, but I really just cut them because I feel like Witch is just so much better. And then continuing, now we have extenders. Synchron Resonator. This card is pretty nutty, you guys. And for any of you guys who are confused on the effects, I guess I should continue reading them because like a lot of people just don't know Resonators. This reminds me of back in the day when I was playing Malice Vorus. If you guys know those level 2 tune, the Malice Vorus monsters, like Fork, Knife, and Spoon, I was running those with Resonators, and I also played them with the Fiends. I mean, the Sphinxes. I played Pyramid of Light and Sphinx Talea and Andro Sphinx. That was like when I was in high school that I was doing that. But like if this card's on the field, if a Synchro monster's on the field, you can special this bad boy from your hand. You can only summon Synchron Resonator once per turn this way. It's unfortunate that that is not like creation, but I guess it makes sense because here's why it would be a little too nutty. Because like if this card's sent from the field to the grave, basically if this card's sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target one Resonator monster in your graveyard except Synchron Resonator and add it to your hand. So like I think the reason why they said you can only summon him this once per turn this way is because like you could have multiple Synchrons and just keep spamming them on the field, Synchro Climb, and keep getting resources back. Because like when you go into the full text, the part that adds from the graveyard to the hand, like when he's sent from the field to the grave, is not once per turn. The once per turn clause is not even like a once per turn clause, it's just a summoning restriction. So this card is absolutely, in my opinion, a 3 of, even though it's searchable, because it's just that good. And then we have 3 Reborn Tengu, another great extender. This card is not popular at all. I don't really know if any other, like, I don't know if this is like a go-to staple. I just felt like this would be a cool addition in the deck. So this is more experimentation than anything, but it works. It really does. And sometimes it works a little bit better than Witch because, well, like, this is going to get you a better follow-up, right? But this is going to get you more bodies. So if we're comparing Crimson plus Witch versus Crimson plus Reborn Tengu in the sense of critical mass, Reborn Tengu is a little bit better because it's going to get you more bodies. The Witch thing is just going to get you a better follow-up for your next turn, so that's going to help you to beat Dark Ruler and stuff that's going to break your board. But like this card just gives you so many more bodies on field. Reborn is actually really nutty in this deck, and I feel like it's a staple. That's why I play both of these, because these are literally normally more often than not, these are your normal summons. If you open res and you feel like your hand can play through it, then you'll just go for it. You just go res, summon out one of these bad boys or this bad girl right here, and you can just keep going off with that. But normally, your safer plays are Special Crimson, normal these, because that's going to help you to play through hand traps a lot better than normal red summon those, in my opinion. And then we have Chain Resonator, a card that I've been on the fence about bumping up because he's that strong. You just summon him while you control a Synchro monster, and you can special summon a Resonator from your deck. This card is also a really good target to add back off Synchron because you're going to be wanting to use that again over and over as many times as you can do it until you run out of targets. I have literally thought about Pot of Avarice, and then we have Creation Resonator. So as you guys can see, I'm not playing any of like the bad Resonators. All the ones I play summon themselves. So it's okay to draw them in your hand. Like you're not going to really get clunked up hands with these guys because it just means you have more gas to push through more hand traps. So if you just control a level 8 or higher Synchro, you could summon this guy. Not once per turn. That's why you're going to summon him, you know, get rid of him. And you're normally just going to like Synchro Climb into Abyss. And then, so like what you're going to do is you're going to go like red, right? Red plus that guy into Abyss. And then you're going to go Synchron plus Abyss into Bane. Use Synchron to add back Creation. Summon Creation. Use Bane to tribute Creation and then bring back Abyss. That's why you normally want to use Crimson to summon out Synchron and also Creation, because they just make the combo a lot more fluid and easier to perform. And then I'm playing the red guys, but I'm only playing one of each because I really don't like necessarily what these guys do for how I'm playing the deck. Like it seems like on pen and paper, wow, this is an amazing card. His level is not that helpful though. I'd rather, if he was a level 4, I'd play 3 of him in a heartbeat. But it's like, it's still a good card, and it's searchable through the Resonator Command. So when you need access to this card, it's fine. Because like level 6 will be helpful in some situations. You know, level 6 and 2, you can get some nice synchro plays from that. But more often than not, you're climbing into a synchro, and then you're using a lot more tuners plus that synchro to synchro climb. That's what you're normally doing in this deck. You're actually using multiple tuners with the synchro to make your boss monsters. Then we have Red Familiar. This card's actually really, really strong for follow-up plays. His graveyard, like the level reduction thing is like cool. Like the level manipulation, I would say, is cool. But his best effect is honestly just to tribute a Fiend and bring back a Dark Dragon, because that gives you insane follow-ups. And Red Sprinter is also really good as a recovery card. Like, I would not start my combo with Red Sprinter ever, because this card, just like Crimson, they have conflicting elements. Like, you just don't, like, if you have to pick one or the other, it's not even a debate. Crimson is much better. And because you have to control no other monsters, I think this card sucks going first. You have to have a very, very, like, awkward hand to make this even work. So I just think that these two right here, Familiar and Sprinter, are better for follow-up plays when you're just on top deck mode and you just start playing out your grave with your Rising and also your Wild King. Like, these are going to help you, obviously, to push a lot better, right? And Warwick is just a searchable extender. So you are technically playing 4 of each, so that's why it's okay to play 1 of each of them. And they really do conflict. Like, these cards will, like, honestly make your hands just, you'll, like, have an awkward situation where you know that you don't want to pick any of these, but it's one of those pick one or the other, and you're never going to pick them. So what's going to happen is they're just going to sit in your hand and be dead. And then that's going to make things even worse, because sometimes, like, you will want to make this card and you can't, because you have cards in your hand you can't get rid of. But anyways, getting past that, more extenders, we have Monster Reborn. That is going to conclude all the extenders. So when you look at it, you've got a pretty insane amount of starters. Like, all these cards are really starters, so you're basically playing 18 starters, 15 if you look at Red Resonator in the light that I see him as a really risky card. And then these are also extenders. So, like, these 3, these 6 right here, this 9, this 12, 15, 17 extenders, 18 extenders. You have a, like, basically in a virtual standpoint, you have like 18 extenders, 18 starters. That's beautiful. Now, getting down to these cards, and that's only because some of your starters are extenders and your extenders can be starters, so on and so forth. We have talents. You're going to get hand trapped a lot. You're going to be dealing with Macabas. You're going to be dealing with Borreload Savages, you know, Abyss in the Dragon Link deck. You're going to be dealing with Negators. You're going to be dealing with Prank Kids. You're going to be dealing with Tomfoolery, capital T. So you want the triple T for that. You can't really play, like, if I was, let's say, on a budget playing this deck, I just really, like, it would just hurt. Like, I just really don't feel like you can play this deck without talents, because it's so fragile sometimes. And when you get hand trapped, you're literally going to be drawing 2 cards more often than not. And if not, you're just going to be taking cards out of your opponent's hand if your hand was good enough. And the reason why I like this better than Desires is because you can't really afford to banish some cards. And then this card also puts you in that situation where every time you draw a playable hand with this, you know you can push better than with a Desires, because you can take cards from your opponent's field, you can take cards from your opponent's hand, or do the draw too. That's why I feel like this is just better. Then Called By, obviously, just, you need it. There's hand traps out there, man. I'm telling you, people are playing quite a few. And then to deal with Shaddolls, Dragon Link, and Dinosaurs, and also Prank Kids, respectively, all 4 of those decks you will struggle against. You want Dark Ruler and Droplets. These are just going to be little equalizers that are so much better than drawing hand traps every single time. And with Droplets, you can actually use Droplets to send Wild King, Reborn Tengu, and even Witch of the Black Forest, and you will actually get some benefit from that. You can even send Red Familiar. So it's like, you have some pretty nice plays with Droplets sometimes. It's going to feel really good, especially activating Resonator Command and, you know, like, pitching that for cost and pitching, like, a Witch of the Forest from, like, field, for example, to hit multiples and get your full benefit out of Droplets. So it's nice in this deck. Then we have Pankertops. This is a really nice card for going second and going first when your Red Resonator gets Gammaed. It's still going to be nice just to sit on this if your hand was that bad. And then I'm playing Synchron Call. This is how you're going to be pretty much turn skipping your opponent with King Calamity. You don't have to play this, but I feel like some of your boards that you're ending on still lose to Dark Ruler really hard, and you can't really beat Nibiru in this deck. Like, the negators that you put up normally are just, like, interactive on the field, so, like, they don't affect Nibiru in hand. So, like, you will struggle with Nibiru a lot, and this can sometimes help you to push through that, because, like, if you can just get an extra body, like, for example, like a Tengu or anything like that, and just have a Synchro Call plus another body, you could still make a nice Synchro push on your opponent's turn. This also helps to play around Dark Ruler, because they'll Dark Ruler your field, and then you can Synchro Call them and still bust this bad boy out, which is going to end their turn. And then we have, and honestly, like, you might want to do that just so, like, you can get a card out their hand, and if not, you can just Synchro Call earlier. Like, you can do this literally anytime you want. It's a trap card. And then this card is very broken. Like, I really like hitting this off of the Chaos Ruler. That's why I really, like, you can play 1, but, like, I just like 2. Like, I was thinking about playing Trap Trick because this is broken. So Red Rain, if you control level 8 or higher synchro monster, banish all monsters on the field, except the ones with the highest level. That's always going to be you. You're going to have level 12s all the time. That's the highest level in the game, so you're not banishing your guy. And then what's going to happen is, after you banish all the monsters, you know, except for your guy, monsters on the field are unaffected by other card effects. So that means, like, except their own. So that means, like, when you banish your opponent's monsters, because yours just, you can't, like, their levels are the highest that they can be, right? Your guy's also going to be unaffected by Jack Squad until, except for his own effect, until the end of this turn. So it's protection and a powerful board wipe. And if a Dark Dragon Synchro monster synchro summon to your field while this card's in your graveyard, add this card to your hand. What makes this card so broken is it doesn't have that set it to your field, banish it when it leaves your field. Instead, you just add it to your hand. So you just, as long as you can make plays, this card's always going to keep being generated back into your hand. And this is, like, very nutty against Shaddolls. It's very nutty against every deck right now. Like, banishing all monsters is too good. Like, there's very few decks that can recover from that. Now for extra deck, we have 3 Red Rising Dragon. This card is absolutely a mandatory 3 of. This card is not once per turn. It's very broken, very powerful. It's a recovery play. It's a starter. It's an extender. It's everything you want it to, like, everything you could ask for in a deck is in Red Rising Dragon right here. This card is so good, and it's very, very powerful. Like, some hands you'll have just Crimson plus, like, for example, Witch. You can still combo with that because Red Rising will actually bring Crimson back and your chain blocking. So that's really nice. We have 2 Hot Red. Hot Red, Bane, and Abyss are very integral. You're going to be summoning these like crazy. Like, these are your go-tos. In fact, before this deck got newer support, these were like your end-all, be-all plays. Like, you were normally making these just to end on. And these cards give you insane amounts of recovery and swarming. Like, you can swarm the field as you're making these cards. And then when you make them, you keep swarming the field after that. These cards are very, very nutty, honestly. And Bane is pretty broken. Like, this card's very powerful, and this is just like your negator. Like, this is your main negator. Chaos Ruler, just to get a little bit more tempo, and it's nice to get those pluses. And when you hit Red Rain, it's so powerful. This card is just, I feel like you just have to play it, even though sometimes you won't hit the best cards off of it. The fact that there is potential to hit some of the most powerful cards in your deck off of this makes it too good. We have Scarlight. I just have this here because sometimes you have plays where you just need this card in particular because he's Red Dragon ARCHFIEND, and I don't like the original one. I like this. And sometimes you have a weaker hand and you'll Dark Ruler your opponent, and you just need to break their board after you Dark Ruler them, and this is one of the easier ways to do it. Void Ogre, sometimes you can just end on this. You will dump your hand sometimes, and it's safe to do that. The reason why it's safe is because you make plays out of your graveyard next turn. BLs, because some decks just can't beat it. It's funny using this deck against, like, Dragoon decks, because, like, Dragoon cannot touch this card. He can't die from Dragoon's effect. He can't die from battle. Like, you can get this guy to virtually infinite attack, but because your life points have a limit, you know, this guy can only get so big. But normally, the decks you make this guy against, they just can't beat him. That's why you have him, because he's a win condition. Red Nova is also another great beater. I don't really like his effect, but he is huge when you make him, and that's sometimes really important because you will need the firepower. We have Red Supernova. I like this guy, but I don't think he's as great as he looks like on pen and paper. I think good players can play around him pretty easily, and because he has to respond directly to a monster effect, if it just said quick effect, that would be a little bit better. Let me reload for you guys. I should have been actively clicking cards and it would have timed out on me. But yeah, if like the Red Nova guy said quick effect, it would just be broken. Like, just banish that guy and your opponent's entire field at any given time. That would be, because like right now, Topologic Zeroboros is still, in my opinion, a better card than him. And he's generic at that, and like it's easier to make a Zeroboros in most decks than it is to make that guy. But like, it is what it is, right? Let me go back to Deck Constructor. My bad, you guys. And I'm going to go to the Hot Red. Boop, 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 boop. Alright, so yeah, like this guy, like Red Supernova Dragon. Like I said, if he said quick effect, he'd be better. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's that great. And a lot of the times when you can make him, you normally can make better plays. And then we have this guy. This is the end-all, be-all. Like, there's just nothing your opponent can do. Your opponent can't respond, and you're going to have a negator to protect this play. So, like, this is what makes me want to play Trap Trick, because you will have hands in this deck where, like, you literally just win the duel. And that is, like, for me, like, why I feel like if this deck had a higher ceiling in the terms of playing through interruptions, this would be a very strong top tier deck because nothing it makes is a joke. This is no laughing matter. None of these boards are a joke. Like, this is nothing to take lightly. None of the boards this deck makes are like something that you could just look at and be like, I got this. Like, it is a struggle to play against this deck, but also it's a struggle to play this deck. So it's like a give and take, like I said, but this card is very broken. Like, this card should be banned. It's just not fair. And then this is another great option when you like have cards like Dark Ruler, because like this card actually just clears the entire field. Whereas this guy can only hit, you know, obviously like special summon monsters. And then if there's the attack cap, right? Like he's only at 3,000. But this is another great option for when you Dark Ruler, because you don't want to Dark Ruler and not break the board. You want to Dark Ruler, break the board, and make a board. And Tyrant Red Dragon ARCHFIEND is insane for that. This card is very, very nutty. Let me go down to a second effect, which also can be useful, which is in the battle phase when Spell Trap is activated, you can just negate it, destroy it, and then this guy gains 500. The way you can kind of use that better is to kind of rush into the battle phase. Not rush in the sense that you're fast playing and not giving your opponent a chance. It's just like when you see back rows, don't make any further plays. Just go into the battle phase and then try to use stuff like, for example, Abyss and Bane, because I'm telling you right now, like your opponent will more than likely respond to those with their back rows, and that's where Tyrant will come in handy. Another cool mind game with this card is like when you're playing against Eldritch, when they see this card, they will immediately start shotgunning their back rows before you go into battle phase, because when you go into battle phase, then you can negate them. So this card is actually pretty nice. And that concludes my deck profile. This is not only a deck profile, but this is a deck discussion, because you guys see I pretty much covered grounds on this deck. If you guys want to see combos, I can do it on a separate video. But with all of that said, thank you guys so much. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Lord Jesus Christ. Thy kingdom come, and thy will be done on earth just as it is in heaven. Please give us this day our daily bread, Lord Jesus, and please forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, Father, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the glory, and the power forever. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray. Thank you, Father. Amen. All right, you guys. So, yeah, definitely let me know how you feel about this deck. If you think my list is dookie, let me know. If you like my list, let me know. I did this for a Patreon. He wanted me to attempt to break this deck. If you guys think that there's better lists out there, hey, let me know, because I want to make this better. Obviously, for that guy, to make him happy, because I don't want him to feel like, you know, cheated or anything like that. But anyways, with all that said, deuces.